Zach Williams' Rescue Story. You know, at the time, I remember thinking it was taking forever for this album to come out. But in reality, it was only just the standard couple years after the release of Chainbreaker. It was out in 2019, put out by Essential Records, Provident Label Group, Sony Music, that whole bunch. And once again, there are 10 tracks on this standard album. So let's get to looking at them. Track 1 is Walk With You. So this one kind of starts out, I guess atmospheric is the best way to put it. I really don't know how else to say it. And then the drums come in with like this really big pop and kind of gives it a little bit of a jump start, if you will. And then the more and more the song builds and really comes to fruition in the chorus. Zach has some really strong vocals there, and that's probably the best part of the whole song for me. Basically, the message is like, though darkness fights him, the singer resolves to keep walking with Jesus, is basically the gist of the message. I remember at first I wasn't sure. I liked the song. I wasn't sure how I really felt about it being the opening for the album. To me, this is a good song that would like be perfect for opening up a concert. But I wasn't really sure about how about it opening up the album. But then at the same time, I don't really know where I would stick it that would necessarily make it feel better. So I won't worry about it too much. It's a good song. Again, it'd be a fantastic concert opener because it's just got that build that you can use to get people all screaming and excited and everything, and then the drums can come in and they all go crazy or whatnot. So it's perfect for that. I hope he uses that. Track 2 is Less Like Me, and this is I would call this a pop song with a kind of a swing, almost a bit of a bounce feel to it. Not a typical bounce feel that you might normally hear, but it does feel a little kind of a bouncy thing, especially when there's a little bit more instrumentation involved. Though he is saved, the singer expresses his desire to be more like Jesus, taking on things like Jesus' character, his actions, etc. This is a song that is really easy to learn, I think, more so the chorus than anything else, but I think it's pretty easy to learn. Really good hooks in this. This is gonna be fun little song for everybody to sing in unison at a concert. So it's gonna be great. Track 3 is Rescue Story, the title track of the album, and I think that this song sounds very similar to Chainbreaker, and like it might be in the same key. I'm not really sure, but it's also more flowing. Chainbreaker kind of is a little bit boxed in its chorus and in its structure, while Rescue Story is much more flowing. So Chainbreaker's chorus kind of sounds like, if you got pain, he's a pain taker. You feel lost, he's a way maker. And then in Rescue Story, it's much more flowing, like, you are the voice in the desert, calling me out in the dead of night, fighting my battles for me. You are my rescue story. So you kind of see how, I don't know how well of a job I did actually singing that, but you go and listen to them back to back, they definitely sound like they're in the same key, but I feel like there's a lot more room for expression in Rescue Story. You can have a lot more fun with that vocally, I think, but they both still deliver powerful messages. Without much detail, the singer sings of Jesus rescuing him, alluding to the event kind of as a story. And there's some really great imagery to back that up. Things like being in the desert, being in a pit of despair, like in the first verse, and just really kind of playing this whole thing is that even though it's a real thing that happened, it's a story, his own story, that God has been writing since before he was ever created. It's a absolutely great song. Well, I'll gush more about it later, but yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic song. As well as the next song, which is Stand Up. So this is kind of, I would argue that this is just as good of a song as Rescue Story, but for completely different reasons. Where Rescue Story is very deep and very personal kind of a song that people can connect with. This one is totally different. This is a high energy, gospel, soulish kind of a song that it's kind of a generic praise song, but there's a little bit more to it than that. I think the delivery of Zach's vocals really helps with this, and also all the different instrumentation. I'll get to that in a second. The singer is challenges rather those that are lost or in tough situations to keep giving God praise. So it is a praise song in the chorus, but then in the verses it kind of expands a little bit and challenges other people to get involved with it. The thing for me that makes this song just like absolutely outstanding are the horns. All the different brass instruments that are in there, especially the trumpets there at the end. Oh my god. So when you're in a band and you're playing, at least for me anyway as a drummer, I feed off of what the other band members are doing. Now granted, as a drummer, I feel like I also have a responsibility to provide some energy to the group so that they can feed off of. But I really, my creativity and what I allow myself to do is also dependent on the kind of mood that they're setting as well. So we kind of feed off of each other with that. And if I'm playing in a band that has this kind of a horn part going on with it, man, I want to just cut loose and like do all kinds of crazy stuff. So hopefully one of these days, if I can actually get drum covers going again, this is a song that I would want to do a drum cover to, because I could have so much fun playing a song like this. This is absolutely fantastic. If you haven't heard it, please take a listen to it. Track 5 is Slave to Nothing. So let's put the brakes on a lot of different things here. We're going to slow the tempo down to kind of a 6/8 soul rockish kind of a song. Really the closest thing to southern rock that we're going to get on this album, unfortunately. There's not a whole lot to that. Instead of a darker, grittier kind of a tone that you would expect from southern rock, it actually has it goes with a lighter kind of a feel to it, especially with the high note triplet patterns. There's this that's being played throughout a lot of the background, and really kind of helps give it more of a joyous type of feeling as opposed to being kind of a typical southern rock grittiness to it. The singing, I believe it sounds like To the Enemy. It could not necessarily the devil himself, although I'm sure it to some manner it is, but any kind of, maybe the devil, demons, spirits, whatever. Singer emphatically is stating that he's been set free, so free from things like addictions, and he sings about a lot of different stuff. But in other words, yeah, that stuff used to hold me in bondage, but now I'm a slave to none of that because of Jesus, obviously. Great song. The only thing that I can say about it is that if you're not a fan of slow songs, this might drag and be a bit much for you to take on. So that'd be my only caution about it. Me personally, though, I think one of the things, because it is even a little bit slow for me, but I think one of the things that really helps me kind of push through and really enjoy it is the not really runs, but the different things that Zach does with his vocals that kind of help keep it from being tedious and boring, and all comes together really nice. Track 6 is Under My Feet, and this one I call it pop, but I honestly, you could even classify it as something else, but it kind of feels popish to me, but it's not like a heavily condensed type of pop either. It's very the music is still very nice and flowing. It's slow, but it's also intense. It's almost like the song itself is waging a war of some kind, which is perfect because that's kind of what the theme of the song is about. Although I say that, what's also equally impressive about it is the fact that Zach sings it very calm, even though the music kind of feels intense, like there's a battle even within the music itself. Zach singing very calmly is like yeah, I don't really need to worry about it. And it fits the theme of the song because the theme of the song is much like Slave to Nothing. It's almost the same exact message, if not the same exact message. The singer states that the enemy is under his feet, alluding to, of course, the sacrifice of Jesus as to why they're under his feet. Because it's not because of his power, it's because of what Jesus did. But yeah, the calmness of the voice while singing fits that theme so much. It's like, yeah, you can do all this stuff, remind me of my past, try all these different things or whatever. I don't sweat you, basically, just you're because of my God, you're under my feet and everything. I don't want to make myself sound like an idiot and elaborate too much on that, but yeah, that's basically what is going on here. So a couple songs back to back with the same message, but they both take different takes on it, for lack of a better word. Slave to Nothing is more, I guess you could say, joyous, a little bit more celebratory, a little bit more positive. The tone of this one's a little bit darker, a little bit more intense, but in the end, it's still just as powerful and just as effective, just in its own way. Track 7 is There Was Jesus. Now this one a lot of people I think are going to gravitate towards, and the reason for that is because somehow Zach Williams managed to get one of the biggest names in country music ever to sing a duet with him, and that being, of course, Dolly Parton. Now, I would find this a little bit more impressive if he had managed to do it before a certain other group did it already, but, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But, all joking aside, though, the song itself kind of feels like it's an acoustic sort of song with just like a little sampling of country in it, which normally would make me cringe, but this is actually a pleasant listen. The vocals aren't overdone at all. There's no competing with each other. Even in the sections when they get louder and there's more power in the voice, there's good balance and chemistry between the two. They actually work really well together. The message, so for everything the singer has been through, Jesus was there, and that's basically it. You don't really need to say anything much else after that. If you want more detail, I mean, it doesn't really get that detailed actually in the lyrics, but you just kind of use your imagination, I suppose, as to all the different things that they've been through, that Jesus was there in the midst of it. And I can see a lot of people really liking the song. I do like this song. You're gonna find later though, it's not like a favorite of mine, but I know a lot of people that are really gonna like this song, not just because Dolly Parton is in it, but also because it's not only musically very good, but message wise it's also really powerful. So this is a very good song that I would recommend you taking a listen to. Oh, and actually real quick, before I get into the next track, I want to compliment Dolly Parton on one thing, though, because it's amazing to me how, she's been around for so long, and yeah, you can tell her voice isn't what it used to be, but she can still hit some of those notes that it amazes you that she can still hit those after years and years of wearing and tearing on the vocal cords. She can still hit some of those. It's very impressive. That having been said, though, there are times where she sings Jesus, and it sounds like her lips are sewn together. And I don't think that's not to knock on her or anything. I think that's kind of more of an age thing. But I questioned at first if Dolly Parton was the best choice for this. I was thinking, like maybe a certain other country music star, like I don't know, Reba McEntire. Maybe that would have worked a little bit better, or even staying within the Christian realm. How about Christian realm? Yeah, one voice that immediately comes to mind is Megan. I don't know her last name, but Megan from Casting Crowns. I think her voice would have been absolutely fantastic for this. But again, in the end, Dolly Parton did a great job, and I really can't complain with what we got. So anyway, let's move on. Track 8, Heaven Help Me. So this has definitely got like a bright, emotional tone to it. I'm not really sure what genre to classify this in. This is maybe some of you guys can suggest something for me, but it's This is such a good song. Good use of the background choir. Basically, the singer is in desperation calling out to God for help, asking, if nothing else, just tell him it's going to be okay. And when I was reading the lyrics, I'm listening to the song and reading the lyrics at the same time. And when it got to that part in the chorus, just the idea is like, you know what? Even if you don't give me anything, any kind of thing about the future or whatever, just if not, the only thing that you give me is telling me that it's going to be okay, and nothing else. But that being enough for me to keep pursuing through what I'm going through. Wow, what an absolutely powerful message that is. That's insane. That's, for me, this is a song kind of like Revival in the previous album. You're going into it, you're not expecting anything one way or another, and then it just comes out of nowhere and just blows you away with lyrics and good music and everything. I mean, this was an absolute treasure to listen to. I love this song. Track 9 is Baptized. When I first listened to this song, I didn't really think much of it, but I will admit that there's a good thing I don't do albums or album reviews like I once wanted to, and that is like basically doing first impression kind of reviews, because if that were the case, I would probably be grading this at the end a lot lower than what Chainbreaker is. But upon repeated listen-tos, a lot of the songs have grown on me, and Baptized is kind of one of them, because I didn't think much of it at first. Thought it was a good listen, but a little bit boring, I mean, I would rather listen to Daughtry's Baptized, and that's not even a Christian song. So then I got to understanding what the story was a little bit more, and it's actually a very clever, ingenious way of storytelling. So let me get into the song a little bit. It's a Southern gospel, and I also call it kind of church-like, because it's like I don't know how many environments you would sing a song like this in, but this fits in a church, but not just any kind of church. This fits in like those, small community kind of churches where, that maybe have like 50, 100 member congregation, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe up to 200. And, but the church setting is small, and everybody just kind of singing together. You got maybe like a 15-person choir up on the stage or whatever, and kind of singing this. It just fits that environment so well, and you hear it throughout the song, and it fits the setting of the song as well. So what it's doing, it tells the story of a man who is recalling being raised in church, recalling things like the preacher he's the preacher baptizing people is the big thing, and he's also recurring or remembering some other things. And basically what it does, it keeps building up to present day, where after running from God, he came back and is about to be baptized himself. So it comes full circle, which is awesome. Probably not one that, well, I don't know. I wouldn't skip over it, but it's not the first one I would necessarily go back to either. Neither is track 10, which is Face to Face. Now let me just say too, both of these are good songs. Again, wouldn't skip over them like I wouldn't skip over anything on Chainbreaker. I wouldn't on this album either. Face to Face though is again also kind of fits that setting that I was talking about with the previous one, but it's much more different. It's piano dominant, and it's occasionally got some organ in it, really kind of giving it that church feel. The song is a reflection on what it will be like when we stand before Jesus, and there's a very good integration of the choir. It's not just singing, harmonizing background stuff with the singer, but it's also it's woven in and out. They kind of trade back and forth sometimes with Zach. It works really well. It's a solid closer, and yeah, that's all the tracks. So quickly, I'll try to wrap this up here. Zach's second album strays it kind of strays from some of the things I liked about the previous album, the southern rock and especially the folk elements. There's not a lot of those there, which I found a little bit surprising. But what it does is it replaces those things with a heavier focus in Southern gospel. There's a very gospel centric kind of style album here, but there's also many things that carry over from the first album as well. Things like good narratives, messages, great vocal delivery, great musicality, all these kinds of different things. And in many ways, it also kind of picks up right where he left off in Chainbreaker. There's really not much else to add. I think you could listen to these two albums back to back even, and have just a nice hour and a half of good music, or however long it takes. So I'm going to give it a 4.7 out of 5. I wish the rock and folk elements were more present. In rock's case, I wish it was more present, and in the folk case, I wish it was actually there, because I really liked those elements from Chainbreaker. That's probably the only reason why it's getting a slightly less score, but that's really more of a nitpick and a personal preference of mine. I wish they could have been woven in a little bit more, but yeah, it was... every track lives up to the previous bar, in my opinion. It's different, but it's still quality. And I can't really ask for anything else other than that. Time's going to tell how all of these tracks fit in with the others as far as favorites go, but, it seems to be a recurring theme with Zach Williams' music. Everything is so good. Instead of just listing favorites, it's only 10 tracks, so I figure what the heck, I'll separate it into 3 tiers. Tier 1, the best of the album has to offer, in my opinion. Rescue Story, which is arguably going to go down as Zach's biggest, most popular hit. It's still early; it's only his second album, but as it stands right now, this is probably going to be one of his biggest ones ever. Rescue Story, Stand Up is again amazing. Less Like Me, great fun tune. Heaven Help Me, love that song. And I went ahead and included in the top tier Slave to Nothing, just because I love the theme and the joy, kind of the joyful nature of Slave to Nothing is what gave it an edge over Under My Feet. Not that I don't like my darker tones, but I don't know, for whatever reason this one just kind of seems to click a little bit more with me. But then when you get into tier 2, you find Under My Feet there, and I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but since I'm talking about Under My Feet, I love the phrasing, the da 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 da, how he sings it in the chorus, and it's so good. There Was Jesus, you can't go wrong with that song. It's a very powerful song. It's a great song in my opinion, I expect it to do more for other people than for me, but I still enjoy it very, very much. Walk With You I include in tier 2 as well, because it's just, it's not, there's not much vocally, but when it gets to its climax in the chorus and everything, it's just, Zach's vocals are amazing. It's fun music to listen to. And tier 3 is Face to Face and Baptized, and that, again, they're not bad, they're not bad songs. They're very traditional styled, which is good if you like that sort of thing. And it feels like I'm insulting the songs by putting them on a lower tier than some of these other things it's not an insult. It's not meant to be an insult that they're there, but they are there. It's kind of like on the previous album with My Liberty. It's a great song, but doesn't do quite as much for me as some of the other ones. But I'm not going to skip over it on my iPod. Anyway, enough of the same point. So some of you might be wondering where the song "Empty Grave" is, because that's a single that has been released by Zach Williams. If you look at the artwork on iTunes, it shares the same artwork as Rescue Story, so why haven't I talked about Empty Grave? Well, that's because it's not on the album. It was released as its own single, which I kind of found surprising. And one of these days I'm going to do a series of videos where I'm going to talk about a lot of these songs that I've missed for one reason or another, because they're either not on the albums or they came out later after I had already done a review on a regular album. And but that'll be for another time, way another time. Right now, I've just got a lot of standard regular albums to cover, and the next of those, as I talked about previously, is going to be for King and Country's "Burn the Ships," and I've pretty much made up my mind on what I'm going to do after that. I'll get into more detail at the end of the Burn the Ships review, but what I can say is expect a bunch of Chris Tomlin in your future, but I'll explain a little bit more when I get at the end of that review. But as for this one, thank you guys very much for listening. If you have anything that you want me to review, please leave a comment down below. I'll see if I can't squeeze it in. Otherwise, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and as always, take care.